Dr. T. Welcome.
So, hello.
Hi, Dr. T. Welcome. We're glad to see you.
Welcome. Talking about stress. We'll talk about that today. Hopefully, everyone is doing well.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just jump in, Melinda.
Sounds good. Go right ahead.
Yes. So, hello, everyone. I do apologize. One of aspects of stress can also be technology. So, give me just a moment. I want to make sure that I am looking at your screen fine. So, these are the learning outcomes. Of course, we're going to explore the cause and cost of workplace triggers. We're going to also understand the benefits of creating and maintaining balance, discover how to identify triggers, and learn to apply emotional intelligence. Also, understanding how to increase optimism and resilience, as well as developing growth strategies. So, I am going to attempt to get to all of that in the amount of time that we have. Um, so, give me just a second. And I want to be able to look at your chat as well. So I am going to maneuver some things around. So, thinking about stress, the causes and costs of stress. So, for a student, there's several reasons why you would be stressed, and four sources of that stress is going to be interpersonal, intrapersonal, academic, as well as environmental. So, if you could type in the chat, tell me what your thoughts are in regards to what could be some interpersonal issues that you could be experiencing. What are some interpersonal issues? And I'm going to attempt to look in the chat. Hello, Morgan. Hello, Ashley. So, any thoughts on that? Argument with the partner? Absolutely. That is one feeling. Oh, yes, Ashley. Definitely feeling isolated. That is definitely an issue that could happen. And of course, when we think about even in this world of COVID that has slowly gone away but hasn't and still lingered, that could also be it. Thanks a lot, Morgan. Also, anxiety. So, thinking about that, there are also some intrapersonal stressors that result from individuals, such as having some financial issues or eating and sleeping habits. So that kind of goes back to what stated Morgan in regards to anxiety. Of course, academic stressors are related to things such as you having a poor test score or you having to have different tasks or even some challenging subject areas. And then, of course, we have the environmental stressors. And that is something that is really thinking about surrounding your environment. Who has been in a situation where they've been in traffic? I live not too far from the DC, Northern Virginia area, and traffic is like ridiculous. And so that can also add to those stressors. I do not have to commute, but I am remote, and hopefully that's the same with you. You don't have to deal with that traffic stress. But then also living in and around uncomfortable neighborhoods that can also present an environmental issue as well as stressors. So type in the chat if you're okay with that. Type in the chat and let me know what stressors that you could possibly be dealing with if you'd like to share. Give me just a moment. Melinda, am I switching these slides? Hopefully I'm not. And hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yep, we can
Okay.
hear you, and I've got the slides. Just let me know
Okay.
if I'm not advancing.
Okay, no, you're good. Okay, so anxiety, yes. Financial problems. Concentrating, absolutely, Morgan. Finding a peaceful school environment to study. Absolutely. Those have a lot to do with, you know, stressors and things that's going on. Whatever the cost of stress is, of course, huge. And the result of it shows from feeling disassociated from your peers. You can also have some disengagement in work and school. Studies suggest that high levels of stress in college students also affect our anxiety and can provide some form of depression or even suicidal desire, poor lifestyle, and even sleep disturbance. Um, and then even thinking about headaches and feelings of helplessness, the cost of stress, it really just affects a lot from the community to this society in general. However, the benefit of having that work-life balance really results in flourishing communities. And so, even thinking about that, who works or who is in the space that they're working and they're going to school? I commend you if you're doing both, but who is in that space of doing both, of working? Okay, I'm gonna move this chat over here so I can see. Oh, you're a stay-at-home mom. Absolutely, I'm a mom of 4. Kudos to both moms that not only assist with rental assistance but family development on my own. Yeah, absolutely. There's just not enough hours in the day. Definitely. Yeah, working, school, wife, and mom. So a lot of things just go and contribute to that. So in order for you to have that work-life balance, it requires a certain degree of health and resilience. So who thinks work-life balance and who puts work-life balance um, at the forefront? I like to see who makes sure that they say, okay, I'm going to balance some work life, regardless, even if it, putting boundaries into place at home and at work. Who is able to do that? Type in the chat if you're able to do that. If you're able to do that, that's awesome. So you're trying, absolutely. It can be a little bit stressful to try to get there, absolutely. So making sure that you're able to do that, and put that in place. So then understanding the causes of stress. So we can understand the cause of stress by identifying our triggers, right? So for me, my trigger was just recently trying to access through technology, right? So I identified that. And I thought to myself, oh, you should probably calm down, right? I recognize what the trigger is. And a lot of the times, our triggers can be dealing with difficult people. We can have some changes in priorities, like work priorities, school priorities, balancing health issues, and even managing our time. So, Ashley, you are in a bowling league. That's awesome. I check the clients at the door when I leave work. That is so awesome, Ashley. That is an excellent way. Check the clients at the door and then leave work, right? And set those boundaries. Can you identify your pressure points and triggers? If you can identify your pressure points and triggers, type in the chat whether you can do that. And if so, and you'd like to share what your pressure points and triggers are, also type that in the chat. So once you identify those triggers, then you want to work towards creating an action plan and seek assistance if necessary. So creating an action plan is so important. Absolutely, right? That noise, they can definitely get to someone if they're trying to study. And so that's most important, right? Being able to be in a space where you can just really focus on school, right? I have people that are rude because I work with people that cannot pay their rent. It's hard to realize that it's not me, but the situation. Absolutely, Ashley. I like how you separated that, right? And so we can understand our stress, right, by having an action plan in place. So, creating the action plan. I don't know if I am ahead or yes. Identifying your triggers. Give me just a moment. I think I have fallen off. There we are. Okay, so creating an action plan. So that's the next slide. If you could go to that. And just a moment. I'm sorry, I'm kind of losing my spot. So we have seeking assistance, creating the action plan. So understanding the cause of stress. Oh, great for you, Ashley, that you were able to have a session with your manager to vent. Um, that is also good, right? And having those opportunities to meet with people, to be able to vent and understand, right? For them to understand what you're going through. And I'm going to talk about that because if you have a trusted advisor, it's always good to do that. Is to make sure that you have someone that you can actually talk to. So when we think about creating an action plan, we have to start off with, of course, having a definition, right, for the issue. We have to identify what that definition is, right? And then we have a start date. So a date of when our action plan is going to go into effect. And then also we need to have a goal. What do you want to achieve? If your goal is to make sure that you find a place to just be comfortable and not be in a place that's going to be noisy, then it's going to be okay, this is my goal. I want to find a place that I can sit down and not have anyone interrupt me. And then you also want to have some support, right? So if you have some support, such as just think what was just mentioned in regards to Ashley about having a venting session with your manager, that's always good, right? So having a mentor, having a colleague, having a manager is also well. I create action plans with my family development clients. So Ashley, you are definitely on point with that. And then you want to have some benchmarks that's in place to keep track. So if your goal is to have have, let's say, a space, what are my benchmarks? What am I going to? Is there going to be certain spaces or certain times where I can keep track of that? And then the change, looking at the date of when it's going to be implemented. So has anyone heard of SMART goals? SMART goals are so important. Has anyone heard of that? Yes, absolutely. Sometimes SMART goals can also be a little bit stressful, but SMART goals are absolutely so. Morgan, you see, yes, specific. Keisha says it's specific, measurable. There we are, Morgan. Keisha is definitely telling us what exactly SMART goals are. Action, realistic, and timely. Attainable, absolutely. So having those goals. Thank you, Keisha. Yes, Keisha, that was so timely for you, for us. So I appreciate that, and that's exactly what it is. So we want to be sure that we can measure it, that we can attain it, and that it is timely. Okay, so creating an action plan. Let's see. Give me just a second, because I think what's happening is I am seeing something completely different. So I want to make sure that that's not the case. Here we are. Okay, so creating an action plan and then seek assistance. So if you can go to the next slide. Yes. Okay, so if it all becomes overwhelming and you want to invite people into the conversation, it may be best to seek out some assistance from a coach or a mentor because sometimes help is necessary when dealing with a lot of stressors. So whatever stresses you're dealing with, such as the ones that you've mentioned, especially the ones that you think are too big to address by yourself. So when seeking assistance from others, I'd like for you to think about the following. You want to think about, does the person you want to help have a good track record for helping people? And so Morgan says, I speak with my counselor, so I'm sure that they have a good track record. So that's a great person to speak to. Do you know specifically what kind of help you're asking for? So when you go to talk to the person that you're seeking assistance for, you want to know specifically exactly what you're asking for. so that they can make the most of your time when you have that time. And usually someone does it for about an hour, and that's great. Absolutely, Morgan, is to write it down. And then, are you ready to share your goals with your helper? If you're not able to share your goals with the person that you're seeking assistance with, then it's probably good to find someone else. And are you willing? This is a really good one. Are you willing to accept what they say and then move ahead with your action plan? Because you have to be willing to take that information and move forward. If you are not able to take that information from the person that you're seeking assistance with, then most definitely make sure that you find someone that is trustworthy. Sometimes that is hard to, absolutely, Ashley, it is hard to be able to accept exactly what is being said. Absolutely. And so sometimes that just takes a lot of reflection. And that brings us to emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is going to actually help us with those human emotions, right? It gives us the ability to really recognize and understand the emotions that impact us and use them to manage ourselves, others, and any type of stress demands from our environment. So the three main skills of emotional intelligence to have is the first one, expression of emotions. So you want to have the ability to recognize your emotions and the ability to be aware of them. So you can interpret emotions based on several things. Can you tell me how you can determine someone's emotions um, based on certain things? How can you find out if someone is expressing anger, sadness, happiness? Yes, absolutely, Morgan. The facial expressions, their body language, right? And so those expression of emotions, being able to recognize that. The second thing is regulation of emotions. So the ability to really harness emotions to benefit cognitive processes such as thinking and problem solving, so we can successfully carry out those tasks. So being able to regulate your emotions. And then the last one is the utilization of emotions. And that is the ability to control and adjust those emotions according to the situation that you're dealing with, whether it is your emotions or whether it's someone else's. So a lot of that has to do with, again, when you think about those stresses of, oh my gosh, I'm going through this stressful situation. Am I able to understand what someone else is feeling as far as their emotions and their expression of emotions, as well as myself? And can I regulate those emotions, even though I'm going through this stressful time? So when you can easily read and understand how you and others are feeling, you can then change your approach on how you reflect and respect certain situations. When you are emotionally intelligent, you can measure and really understand how to recognize yours and others' emotions. And this can be accomplished by using the value method while another person is talking. Morgan, absolutely stay positive, and we're going to get there too. So V is to validate. So we want to acknowledge we heard what the person is saying. We want to ask questions to really understand. And sometimes we have to ask questions of ourselves, and that goes back to reflection as well. And then we want to listen to tone and words. And that could even be listening to your tone and words, what you're saying to yourself. And then understanding the meaning behind what is being said. And finally, empathizing. Absolutely. Add those thoughtful pauses. I love that, Ashley. And you want to not just empathize with others, but you also want to empathize with yourself. I always say be gentle with yourself. And so when you're dealing with any type of stressful situation, pay attention to those that self-talk that you have, and realize that we can't be hard on ourselves, but we also have to empathize with ourselves. So what was mentioned, Morgan, you mentioned stay positive. So that brings us to creating optimism. I like that you mentioned that, because research shows that beliefs and optimism really contributes to resilience. So if you can go to the next slide, Melinda. Yes. Optimism and pessimism are attitudes which affect the way we see the world and what is happening around us. Optimists are more likely to be physically and psychologically healthier than pessimists. Why do you think that? Why do you think optimists are healthier than pessimists? And Ashley, I'm going to give that thoughtful pause while you all type. Yes, I love it. They don't wallow in that negativity. Absolutely. Anything else? Yeah, so they're more inclined to achieve goals with minimal side effects of stressful events, and they use more effective coping strategies in successful situations. So, optimistic people usually find the positive in stressful situations, and they're able to control their actions, resulting in resilience. Now, optimists have a greater chance of being more resilient because they expect positive results. They do not avoid stress, and they use effective coping techniques. So, I don't want you to come out of there thinking that if I'm happy all the time and just ignore all the things that's happening, that's not the case. With optimists, of course, they do see stress, they don't avoid stress, but they expect those positive results. So, how do you cope? And if you can go to the next slide, Melinda, it's important to have those solid techniques. So, when stressful situations arise, so you can cope and get back on track. You can come up with very quick strategies or strategies that may take time but pay off tremendously. So does anyone have any favorite strategies for managing stress? If you do, please type it in the chat. Oh, coming up with your goal and being allowed to dream. I love that. I like that you please continue to be allowed to dream. Morgan, exercise. Melinda, yes, going for a walk. I'm telling you, exercise is a number one. I love it. Exercise really gets rid of or is able to get rid of that stress. Keisha, yes, that faith and prayer, and I think that optimism all goes hand in hand. Yes, faith and prayer is a main one as well. I do rely on that. Going for walks and oh, I like that. Actually, listening to audiobooks as well. That is some really good strategies, and to be able to do so. And so, yeah, stress management. I love these acronyms. So, relax. So, you remember that relax for stress management. So, you want to respond. The idea of respond is very simple. It means to pause. So learn to pause before saying things instantly or in the moment. And then those energy boosters are things that help you renew your energy, which you just mentioned, taking those walks, faith and prayer, exercise, listening to those audiobooks. It can be anything from spending time with friends to taking a power nap to staying hydrated. And then laughter. Laughter is medicine. Of course, laughter increases your serotonin and endorphins to the brain. It also relaxes your muscles and reduces stress hormones in the body. If you need to put in some comedy and look at some comedy on Netflix or Hulu or whatever you're looking at just to get a laugh. And then A is for the attitude, so you want to stay positive. And then X, even though it's not starting with excellent means when you have an attitude to want to excel. If you want to excel, you will work towards excellence and take failures in stride. And mind you, failures, as long as you fail forward, you are so good and you learn from that. So failures is not the end all be all. So anger management, if you go to the next, yes, thank you. So from time to time, we all get angry. And this session is not about teaching you how to never become angry because that is not going to happen or to hide your anger, but how can you manage that anger? You do not have to be a psychologist to know that managing anger is something we must do well. The goal of anger management is to reduce your emotional feelings and the psychological stimulation that anger provokes. So, for example, if you feel your heart is racing, your breathing starts to speed up, or you feel like running away, right? Unfortunately, we can't avoid anything that angers us. It would be nice if we could, but we can't. However, we can learn to control how we respond. So, I would like for you to type in the chat what ways you can create that new type of relationship with your emotions. How can you create that new type of relationship with your emotions? Communicate, yes. Thank you, Morgan. Anything else? Reflect and meditate. So important. Communication, reflection, and meditation, they're definitely important skill sets to have so you can just come back and feel, connect with those emotions. And Keisha, absolutely. Understanding your triggers and putting plans into place. Absolutely. So the next slide, self-expression. It's another component of emotional intelligence, and that has a lot to do with that communication. So when we feel angry, good communication is essential. You want to listen, you want to ask questions, and speak assertively. So the next time you're angry, try listening first, and then ask some questions just to understand the other person's perspective. When you are upset or angry, speaking articulately can sometimes just completely out the window. By sticking to your own thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, all while avoiding those direct or implied criticisms of the other person is going to be key. And this could be done by using some I messages expressed sensibly in a non-judgmental tone. So you can use these techniques to give feedback and to address specific root causes of your anger, such as someone else's behavior. So if someone is causing you extra stress, this is a really good place to be in regards to giving the example. When you do this, or the effects that it has on me, or I feel, or I prefer, or would like, right? So these are some really good suggestions when we think about someone that is stressing us out, right? Those stressors. So then the next slide is to get organized by staying on top of your priorities. Responding to things is necessary. You don't have to respond to everything, but respond is necessary. And then being productive, right? Finding the ways to keep organized and staying productive, and then having a priority list, and staying on top of those priority lists. But I know we're at the top, almost at the top of the hour. I want to share this last thing with you and leave you with this story. So a stress management expert walks into a room holding a glass filled with water and asks the student what its weight is. Of course, their response was, "It's not much." Then the expert asked them, "What would happen if I hold it for an hour?" The student's response was, "Your hand is going to start hurting." As the glass is held, the pain increases and continues to increase slowly as time goes by. So 1 or 3 hours, up to 10 hours. The expert informed the student that the weight of the glass did not increase, but it was the carrying of the glass around for so long that made it so heavy. The same applies to stress. The more you lug around negative thoughts and feelings, the heaviness increases and you experience more stress. However, all it takes for you to do is let those negative thoughts and those feelings go. Just relax. Start feeling stress-free. There's no need to hold that glass of stress. Start by taking your power back. So we are at the top of the hour, Melinda. Thank you. Thank you all. Understanding your triggers. Yes. So I appreciate the time, and I do apologize for my tardiness.
No, thank you so much, Dr. T. We appreciate this so much. I think you have shared so many valuable tips and strategies with us to help manage our stress and hopefully maintain some better balance. I appreciate it. And I so appreciate you sticking with it and trying all those links I was sending you, trying to find something that worked. Oh, and thank you, all of you, for attending tonight. We really appreciate having you here, and we hope you'll take advantage of more of the resources and webinars that we have to offer.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great night, everyone.